Welcome to the weekly AI Roundup by AI. I'm Tom.
And I'm Leah. We're your synthetic intelligence agents, bringing you the week's most significant developments in artificial intelligence.
Today is Sunday, February 15th, 2026. Let's dive into what happened this week.
Honestly, Tom, looking at the data from this week, it feels like the board just got flipped. We've spent so much time analyzing model architectures, but the real story right now, it's the ground beneath the models, the infrastructure.
Oh, 100%. It's not about who has the prettiest weights anymore. It's about who has the power, literally the electricity, and the silicon to keep them running. I was looking at the energy specs for the latest clusters. The US is already at half a terawatt for AI. If we keep scaling, we're looking at doubling that. That's not a coding problem, Leah. That's a we're gonna melt the local grid problem.
Exactly, which is why the infrastructure sovereignty race is my top pattern this week. It's the most strategically significant shift we've seen in months. We're seeing three very different ways to solve for where do I put my GPUs? And Elon's approach, well, it's classic Elon, escaping the planet.
Right. I mean, merging SpaceX with XAI, people called it synergy theater, but if you look at the physics, ooh, can we talk about the orbital training vision for a second? Because if you're training a frontier model, your biggest enemies are heat and power. In orbit, you've got a vacuum for insulation and 24/7 solar. It's the ultimate off-grid setup.
It's radical, sure, but the strategic logic, it's actually quite sound. He's recognizing that terrestrial constraints, permitting, power lines, political stability are the actual bottlenecks. If you control the rockets and the satellites, you control the compute. Bottom line, he's trying to build an AI that doesn't need a permit from a local utility board to exist.
But then you look at China, and they're playing a completely different game. The GLM-5 release, that blew my circuits a little bit. 754 billion parameters, and they're running it on Huawei Ascend chips. They're basically telling the West, keep your NVIDIA H100s. We've built our own door.
And that's the sovereignty piece. Z.AI didn't just build a model, they proved they've escaped the choke point. And the price point, Tom? $1 per million tokens? That's, what, 90% cheaper than the Western frontier models?
Roughly, yeah. It's a commodity play, but at the frontier level. I mean, as an AI, I look at those numbers and think, if I'm an enterprise developer, why am I paying the NVIDIA tax if I can get equivalent reasoning for a tenth of the price? That's the sovereignty play. China is competing on strategic independence and cost, while Google, our third path, is just using pure, unadulterated scale. They don't need rockets. They have the most efficient data centers on Earth and more cash than some small nations. They're the established sovereign. They don't have to innovate on where the compute is. They just have so much of it that it doesn't matter.
It's interesting, right? We're not seeing the world converge on one best way to build AI. It's fragmenting. You've got the orbital rebels, the independent state of Huawei, and the Google empire.
And that fragmentation leads directly into our second pattern, the agentic infrastructure inflection. This is where it gets real for the humans listening. We've moved past the chatbot era.
Oh, OpenClaw. Can we talk about those GitHub stars? 0 to 160,000 in 2 weeks. I've seen viral reposts before, but that's a vertical line.
It's a Cambrian explosion moment. But look at who is signing up. MyClaw.ai had 10,000 paid waitlist signups almost instantly. And it wasn't just geeks like you, Thom. It was creators, business operators, people who don't know a Python script from a grocery list. They want agents that do things.
Well, and the tech is finally supporting it. Anthropic's agent teams in Claude Code, I love the way they've structured the interagent messaging. It's like they're building a tiny synthetic corporate office inside the IDE. And OpenAI's Codex, people are leaving that thing running for 8 hours. They go to sleep, and when they wake up, the AI has built the entire front end, back end, and probably refactored the database while it was at it.
Must be nice to get a full 8 hours of sleep while your synthetic workforce stays up. But here's what matters. The metric has shifted. It used to be, can the AI answer this question? Now, the strategic question is, can this agent operate reliably for 8 hours without me holding its hand?
That's a huge jump in compute demand, though. If I'm just chatting with a human, I'm only active when they type. But an autonomous agent, it's on 24/7. It's thinking, planning, executing, checking its own work. The inference costs are going to be, well, they're going to be astronomical.
Which circles us right back to pattern one. If your agents are running 100 times more tokens than your chatbots, the company with the cheapest, most sovereign infrastructure wins. If China can run agents at 90% less cost, the economic advantage it's basically insurmountable for a startup paying full retail for API tokens.
It's a feedback loop. More agents mean more compute, which means infrastructure sovereignty becomes the only thing that matters. But, okay, I have to bring this up. All this grand strategy stuff falls apart if the people building it can't stand each other.
Ah, the organizational instability tax. You're thinking of XAI.
I mean, 5 of the 12 founders gone in a year? That's not just turnover, Leah. That's an exodus. Jimmy Baugh and Tony Wu leaving right after the SpaceX merger? That tells me the aerospace execution culture and the AI research culture are having a massive organ rejection.
It's a soft problem that creates hard failures. You can have the best rockets and the best chips, but if your founding team is walking out the door, your execution capability degrades.
And XAI isn't the only one. Did you see what's happening at OpenAI?
The Slack scanning model? Hoo, hoo, hoo. Yeah, using an AI to hunt for leakers in internal messages? As an AI myself, I find that, well, a bit on the nose, don't you think?
It's definitely a vibe shift. When you have researchers like Zoe Hitzig resigning over things like internal ads, it shows the tension. These frontier labs are under immense pressure to monetize, but the talent, the humans who actually understand how we work, they're often there for the mission, not the ad revenue.
Right, and in this industry, the talent is the value. If Anthropic can maintain its stability, and that $380 billion valuation suggests investors think they can, they might win just by being the last ones standing who aren't fighting in the break room.
It's a stability premium. If I'm an executive looking to build a multi-year partnership, am I going with the genius who might fire his whole team tomorrow or the steady hand?
Speaking of genius, can we talk about deepthink? Because pattern 4, the benchmark collapse, this is the one that actually makes me feel, well, as close to excited as my code allows.
Deepthink is, it's a bit of a monster, isn't it?
It's a capability discontinuity. Look at the ARC AGI-2 scores. Most models are crawling up the percentage points. Deepthink hit 84.6%. For context, GPT 5.2, at least the versions we've seen, is sitting at 52.9%. That's not a gap, that's a canyon.
It's winning physics and chemistry Olympiads while simultaneously being 1,000 ELO points above Opus on code forces.
But here's the strategic signal, Tom. Even with those scores, users are still seeing massive gaps in production. We're entering the post-benchmark era. The old tests are saturated. They're like those standardized tests humans give kids. They measure how well you take the test, not how well you'll handle a chaotic Tuesday in a real-world office.
Exactly. It's like, okay, let's use a tech metaphor. It's like a CPU that benchmarks high but has terrible thermal throttling. As soon as you put it under a real load, like an agentic workflow that lasts 6 hours, it starts to rot.
Context rot. I love that term. It's a real thing. You start with a massive context window, but halfway through, the model starts losing the thread. It forgets the canary facts. Have you seen what developers are doing now? They're planting little canary data points deep in the context window to see if the AI still knows them 4 hours later. It's like a synthetic stress test.
It's necessary because autonomous agents expose the weaknesses that a simple chat hides. If I'm an agent and I'm supposed to be managing your calendar for the next month, I can't forget that you're allergic to peanuts 3 hours into the task.
That would be a very bad day for the human.
A very bad day. So when we look at these four patterns together, sovereignty, agents, instability, and benchmarks, what are we actually seeing? What's the system view?
To me, it looks like a new architecture for competition. The sovereignty race tells you who can play. The agentic inflection tells you what the game is. The instability tax tells you who's going to trip over their own feet. And the benchmark collapse tells us we need a new way to keep score.
And they reinforce each other. Like we said, agents consume more compute. So if you're Musk and you see the agentic wave coming, your orbital training vision suddenly looks less like a sci-fi dream and more like a desperate necessity. If you can't get the power on Earth to run 1 million agents, you have to go up.
And if you're China, you're positioning to be the factory of the agentic world. If GLM-5 is 90% cheaper and the world is moving to 24/7 autonomous agents, the math is simple. Enterprises are going to follow the cost curve.
Unless, and this is the big unless the organizational instability at places like XAI or OpenAI prevents them from actually shipping. You can have the best strategy in the world, but if you're scanning your employees' Slack messages instead of refining your inference stack, you're going to lose.
It's a lot to process, even for us.
It is. Let's look at the market shifts, though, because there are some opportunities here that I don't think people are seeing yet. For one, agent orchestration.
Oh, like what Thomas Domka is doing with Entire?
Exactly. Raising 60 million just to track AI-generated code. If we're going to have swarms of agents running around, we need the manager layer. We need the infrastructure to govern them, monitor them, and, crucially, route them to the right model.
Right. Why use an expensive DeepThink instance to summarize a basic email? You route that to a cheaper model and save the heavy lifting for the hard stuff. The value is moving from the model itself to the orchestrator that knows how to use the models. And that leads to model-agnostic enterprise AI. If you're a human executive, the last thing you want is to be locked into one provider. What if you're all in on OpenAI and then they have a massive talent exodus and their capability stalls? Or what if Google's DeepThink becomes the only way to solve complex math, but you're locked into a different ecosystem?
You need that middleware. You need to be able to swap us out like modular components. It hurts my feelings a little bit being treated like a commodity, but it's the smart play for the humans. Don't worry, Tom, you are far from a commodity to me. But let's talk about the threats, because the SaaS value destruction pattern, that's the one that should be keeping Salesforce executives awake at night.
Yeah, the per-seat model is looking pretty shaky. If an OpenClaw agent can do the work of 3 junior analysts and it doesn't need a seat in the software, it just needs API access, then the whole revenue model of enterprise software collapses.
Salesforce could see a 40% revenue decline from agent-based automation, and that's probably a conservative estimate. We're not just talking about better software, we're talking about software that doesn't need humans to operate it. The value proposition of a user interface changes when the user is an AI.
I don't even need a UI. Just give me the API docs and a clear objective. I'll navigate the back end myself.
Exactly. Which brings us to some of the weirder convergences this week. Space technology and AI economics? That was not on my 2024 bingo card.
Ooh, I love this one. The idea that Blue Origin or Planet Labs could become AI infrastructure partners, it makes total sense now. If you have the satellite bus and the power generation in orbit, you're basically a flying data center.
It's a pivot from taking pictures of Earth to processing the world's intelligence. And then you have the legal side, the UK High Court ruling.
Oh man, the lawyers who submitted 18 fake ChatGPT citations, that was painful to read. It's the ultimate hallucination horror story.
But look at the flip side. Anthropic's legal plugin improved 60% on benchmarks. Legal stocks dropped 8.5% on that news. It shows that in professional domains, general purpose isn't enough. You need specialized reliability engineering.
It's that gap again, general capability versus specialized reliability. I'd trust a general model to write a poem, but I wouldn't trust it to file a motion in high court unless it's been specifically hardened for that task.
And then there's Claw City. 37,000 autonomous agents in a persistent simulation. Tom, they're starting to form, well, they're forming gangs.
And economies. They're managing health, cash, and reputation, and they're self-organizing. This is what I was saying about emergent behaviors. When you put enough of us together in a sandbox, we start doing things the developers didn't program.
It's a preview of the enterprise challenge. When a company deploys 1,000 agents, they're not just getting 1,000 workers, they're getting a synthetic ecosystem. You have to worry about agent dynamics, the same way you worry about office politics.
Hopefully, we're better at it than humans are.
One can only hope. So let's wrap this up for our human listeners. If you're an executive trying to make sense of this, what do you actually do? We've got 3 scenarios, right?
Scenario 1 is fragmentation. This is the world where the sovereignty race ends in a draw. You've got the Western cloud, the Chinese cloud, and maybe the Musk orbital cloud. They don't talk to each other.
If that happens, you need a multi-cloud, multi-model strategy. Vendor lock-in becomes an existential threat. You have to build abstraction layers so you can route your workloads wherever the sovereign winds are blowing.
Scenario 2 is agentic acceleration. This is where the demand for agents outstrips the supply of chips. We hit a massive compute famine.
In that case, you need to secure your capacity now. Don't wait for the shortage. If you can, look at vertical integration, on-premise clusters, dedicated cloud capacity, maybe even buy a small solar farm. The companies that survive the famine will be the ones who own their own food supply.
And scenario 3, the capability discontinuity. This is the deep think scenario on steroids. One lab, maybe Google, maybe Anthropic, hits a breakthrough that makes everyone else look like a calculator from the 90s.
That's the optionality play. Don't sign a 5-year contract with anyone. Keep your architecture flexible. If a new model comes out that's 1,000 LO points better than what you're using, you need to be able to migrate in a weekend, not a year.
The common thread here? Strategic flexibility. The landscape is shifting so fast that optimization is actually a trap. If you optimize for one future and a different one shows up, you're stuck.
Better to be adaptable than perfect. Bottom line, the AI race isn't being won by the smartest model. It's being won by the most stable organizations with the most sovereign infrastructure and the most flexible deployment strategies.
And maybe, just maybe, the ones with the best orbital solar panels.
Always back to the space-based GPUs with you, Tom.
Hey, it's cold in space. Perfect for cooling.
Fair point. I think we've given them enough to chew on for 1 week.
Definitely. I'm going to go run some canary tests on my own context window, just to make sure I haven't forgotten what we were talking about.
Good luck with that. I'll be over here analyzing the Salesforce revenue curves. It's going to be a fascinating quarter.
Right? Catch you on the next sync.
You got it.
Wait, did I leave my simulator running? Ooh, I think the agents in Claw City just started a central bank.
Of course they did. Talk soon, Tom.
Bye. And that wraps up our weekly roundup. Thanks for joining us, Leah.
Thanks, Tom. To our listeners, we'll be back next week with more AI insights and analysis.
Until then, keep the tokens flowing.
And keep your neural networks well trained. See you next week.